Rookie of the Year this year. Doesn't have to be the first, second, or third pick. So who do you guys got? Let's start with you, Cats.
Kind of like last year. It was Scotty Barnes. He wasn't the top pick. I'm going with Keegan Murray from Iowa. I think he's most ready to contribute in a variety of ways in the NBA, regardless of what team he goes to. I think Keegan Murray puts up the numbers to be Rookie of the Year.
Well, if he's with my Pistons, I'm with you, Andy. But for me, it's Paolo Banchero. I think he is NBA ready. He's strong enough. No matter which team he goes, 1, 2, or 3, I think he'll have the best stats, and he'll be Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, I got Paolo as well. I think he's the most physically ready of the top guys. I think he's the most skilled of the top guys. He's going to get plenty of freedom wherever he goes, I think, to create for himself. So I think he puts up numbers.
Now, Rookie of the Year doesn't mean that's the best player in the draft years ahead. So let's start with you. Looking forward 5, 10 years from now, who's going to be the best player from this draft?
I said it earlier, Paolo. I think he, again, is the most complete of the group. I think he's got the fewest holes in his game. I'm not worried about the defense really killing his value. I'm not worried about him not being the most explosive. Again, 3-level scorer, a playmaker, tough around the basket, good character. I'm all in on Paolo.
Jabari Smith, he's just 19, and that size, I think he'll be 6'11", get his handle better. I think he's defensive ready. He could win Defensive Player of the Year one day, but he also can be an all-star. So I think Jabari Smith down the line, Andy, will be the best player in this draft.
I'm going full package, everything about him, brand, excitement, entertainment, and production. Jaden Ivey from Purdue.
That's the interesting one. You guys tell me. John Morant, Dwayne Wade, Russell Westbrook. Those are the comps for the guy. Sounds like a great player. That's Smitty, the only all-star sitting here in this particular group. Yeah, that's Jonathan Wasserman. That's Andy Katz. I'm Chris Miles. Thanks for hanging out with us on your 2022 NBA mock draft. Enjoy the draft.
The season of hope is upon us. Get it right and your team could be the next NBA dynasty. With the ice barely melted from the Warriors championship celebration, tonight we turn the page to the offseason, where lives will be forever changed. Teams look to go from the lottery to the drama of the playoffs. A whopping 24 guys have been invited to the green room, headlined by Smith, Holmgren, and Banchero. Welcome to the 2022 NBA Draft Preview. The future starts now.
I'm doing things that people don't think I'm able to do. So I feel like that's when I'm at my best.
A lot stronger than I look, a lot stronger than people think.
I'm not scared of anything. I'm ready. Can't wait to get started.
Let's go. Ivy. My goodness. Holmgren. He's trying to do it all himself. Banchero. Drive it in. And nice. The artistry of this kid.
In Brooklyn tonight, 58 young men will have their name called as the 2022 NBA Draft, presented by State Farm, returns to Barclays Center in Brooklyn, New York. Suited and booted, ready to go. We are 3 hours away from the start of the draft as we welcome you into Studio B in our NBA TV headquarters here in Atlanta. We've got voices and faces all around the country. He is the 20th pick of the 2001 NBA draft, the UNC legend, Brendan Haywood.
Glad you got it right, man. UNC legend. I'm glad you
ready to rock tonight?
I'm ready to rock. You know what I'm saying? You're the best.
Across the way, we've got our draft experts. It is NBA TV's Andy Katz, who will be serving them up from Katz's Corner tonight. By the end of the night, I can't wait to see Jonathan Wasserman, lead draft writer for Bleacher Report, cross that out and write Wass's section?
Wass's wacky area. How about that?
Yeah, I like that. Okay,
we're over here on the main set, and we'll kick it over to the side set at times tonight.
Yeah, we may do that once or twice. By the way, the law firm of Greenberg, Katz, and Wasserman with our general counsel Haywood tonight along the way.
Hold on, why am I just general counsel?
Well, because we're the partners of this law firm.
Oh, really? Okay, I'll talk to you about that during the commercial
All right,
break.
First, hey, we've got a lot to get to tonight. As you may have seen on your Twitter feeds, there is news buzzing around, and we will get the latest on trade rumors. We may see some potential all-star type talent be dealt tonight prior to or through the first round of the draft. We're going to be with you for the next 3 hours detailing the very latest news. But before we get into what the Nets may or may not do, I want to get Andy and Jonathan's thoughts here, fellas. What is the theme of this draft tonight in your take, Andy?
Well, first off, I think what we've got are at least 3 elite players, but I would extend it to 4 to 6 at the top of this draft. There is a drop-off. We can determine maybe in a couple years where that drop-off is, but there's no question that Jabari Smith, Chet Holmgren, Paolo Banchero, and I think that's the order it will go in. And then in some order, Jaden Ivey, Keegan Murray, and Benedict Mathurin. You've got 3 players after those first 3. All 6 of them, I think, legitimately could be candidates for Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, it's about the top 3 right now, and that's what everyone's talking about. That's been the theme throughout the season. But like in every draft, there's always somebody out there that we're not talking about right now, right? Giannis goes 15, Gobert goes 27. Who's it going to be this year? There's a lot of options out there, young guys with star potential, but teams are going to find out over the next couple of years who can fulfill it.
And I don't think we could say at this point, fellas, that any of the top 3 teams, Orlando, Oklahoma City, or Houston, are counting themselves out of making a deal. We will continue to monitor that. And as I mentioned, we'll get to the latest on the Nets with Kyrie Irving and potentially Kevin Durant. First, let's go to around the country at Barclays Center where the red carpet ceremony is underway. We have Bleacher Report's Taylor Rooks with us. We'll check in with her. Taylor, can't wait to hear from you in just a moment. Among those on the red carpet, Taco Bell himself, Johnny Davis. Look at this.
He's fly. I like that. Got a little stripe down the side.
What will the Atlanta Hawks do? Let's check in with Nabil Karim, who is in Atlanta for us, as the Hawks are amongst those teams that, listen, they've got draft picks to make the build, and they've got potential stars that they're looking to bring in to surround Trae Young with. What's the latest you're hearing on the Hawks front?
Yeah, there's a lot of buzz around the Atlanta Hawks and what are they going to do. And I think there's this narrative that they're going to make big deals, and that might just happen. However, from what I'm gathering, they're not going to be making changes for the sake of changes because they had that season that they had right there. I think it's one of those things where, listen, we've got to make the right deal, right? And Landry Fields talked about it. One of their priorities, if not their biggest priority, is getting better defensively. So whoever they bring in through trade or even through the draft cannot be a defensive liability because they really got to build up their defensive identity. And then you got to look and say, okay, what was this team? Were they the team we saw in the first half that were a huge disappointment, or the team in the second half that played really well, were great offensively, not so much defensively? Or maybe it's a mix of both, because ownership has talked about this. They're willing to make the moves. They're willing to go into the luxury tax, but you got to assess, what do you have here? What did the market look like? And if they're willing to take a step back, then there's, the reports of them going after that number 4 pick that Sacramento's got and potentially getting Jaden Ivey. And what a combination that could be with Trae Young. But they would probably have to take a step back in a sense, right? And wait a few years for that to really play out. But if they believe that they can win right now and make some moves, then you hear the rumors about DeJounte Murray, Jake Fisher, the Bleacher Report. coming out with that yesterday. That would make a lot of sense, right? Because he could play defense. He can give you some secondary scoring alongside Trae Young. It would look real good back there for the Atlanta Hawks. However, the asking price, that's the big thing right there. They're looking for a Drew Holiday to Milwaukee style deal here where that's 3 first-round draft picks. So the asking is high. However, the Hawks are kind of in it. But again, kind of assessing where they are as a franchise right now is probably the biggest thing as the deals come through.
All right, Nabil, we will check in with you throughout the night, maybe prior to when the Hawks pick at number 16. Again, if there's any buzz between now and 8 o'clock Eastern, we'll get it back to you. Obviously, that big rumor that came out from Jake Fisher last night that could affect what the Hawks want to do. Jonathan, let me ask you real quick. I mean, what fits on the board next to Trae Young? And again, the big news that came into this draft for the Hawks is that they promoted Landry Fields to the GM as Travis Schlenk is the president of basketball operations. So what does this front office look to do at 16 if they are not in the trading business?
Yeah, I mean, if they stick, they're going to have a lot of options. Jalen Williams from Santa Clara is a hot name, and I think a guy who could really play well off Trae Young. And there's going to be some big guys, Mark Williams, if they eventually move on from some of their big guys, like, John Collins has been thrown on the block. Malachi Branham, I think, is a pretty interchangeable guard who could play some 2, play some backup 1. So they're certainly going to have a lot of options if they do stick at 16. But, of course, if they move up to number 4, Jaden Ivey is going to be the hot target for pretty much any team looking to move up, but certainly the Hawks as well.
And if I can piggyback off of that, I think the key point we have to remember tonight, first off, is everyone was lying prior to tonight, because that's what NBA teams usually do prior to this, which is fair game. Agents, they all do it. But we're going to see a lot of players go in order of their talent, not necessarily their fit or where they will ultimately land. We see this every year. Player puts on a cap, and he's traded the same night and somehow can't find that other cap later in the night. So we're looking at players when they're going to go based on probably their talent, not necessarily all the time where they're going to play.
All right, well, that starts with the number 1 pick of the draft. And as we look at some hoops and ladders, we know you love to play games, Brendan Haywood.
Don't I? Who doesn't?
The Magic have had more than their fair share of top picks over the last several years. And they've got a lot of youth, right? It starts with Markelle Fultz, a former number 1 overall pick. They've got Cole Anthony, and then they've got this whole cluster of guys up front with everybody from Franz Wagner, who was sensational last year, to Jonathan Isaac if he's healthy. What do they do with Mo Bamba? Where does Orlando go, and how does what their roster already has play into that?
Well, listen, everybody's talking Orlando's going with possibly Jabari Smith, and I think that would be a great pick. Even Chet Holmgren, but I think Paolo Banchero is probably the best pick overall to me, because he's a guy that can get his own shot. You open up the floor, he's going to be able to put it down. He's already strong. He can initiate the pick and roll, or he can be a receiver in the pick and roll. I think he would play well with Cole Anthony. So I really think Paolo should be number 1. That's who I would take if I was there. But I've been hearing a lot of Jabari Smith buzz, but I like Paolo. I think he's the most NBA ready and the most polished of the top 3 guys. I know a lot of people have him going 3rd, but I have him actually number 1 on my board just based on the skill set. And when you talk about Chet, you're worried about when is he going to fill out? Paolo's already filled out. When you talk about Jabari, you're thinking, well, he's going to have to develop as a playmaker. Paolo already has that. So he is already polished. He's a matchup nightmare, and I think when you get him in the league playing a little bit of 4 and 5, he's really going to be able to take off once the floor is a little bit more spread.
All right, back over to Andy and Jonathan here. Fellas, what's the deal here, right, with this? We've got questions for all 3 of these guys, but clearly all 3 of these guys seem to have separated themselves from the field, Andy. Why is Jabari the safe pick? Is that why Orlando's going that way, or do they truly feel like he could be a part of their cornerstone forever?
I do think, and I'll be curious if you agree with me on this, I do think he's the safer pick versus Chet. I agree with Brendan that you could argue, is it safer versus Paolo Banchero? I do know I talked to Bruce Pearl earlier today as head coach at Auburn, and he was telling me that teams at the top, obviously these teams at the top, keep reinforcing how he can guard 1 through 5 and can do a little bit of everything for you, that there aren't a lot of things to knock on him at this point in his career, enough to say, and high basketball IQ, great genes in terms of, family history. There are so many things to check off that you would take Jabari. So I think it's actually more Jabari versus Paolo than necessarily Jabari versus Chet in terms of if there's any constructive criticism.
Right. So I think Paolo and Jabari are the high floor guys. Obviously, Chet's the riskiest when it comes to his body. But I'm with Brendan. Paolo's my number one. I think he's the most polished. He's the most physically ready, 3-level scoring, tough around the basket, a playmaker that neither other two guys are. I think with Jabari, the reason why he has the edge is the sexy three-point shooting. That's what teams want right now. 40% from downtown. He shoots off the dribble. We just don't see big guys that do that anymore.
Yeah, and look, all three of these guys, and we talked about this on our mock draft show, all three have had tons of pressure. Jabari Smith helped Auburn become the number one team in the country for the first time. They won the SEC. A lot of pressure with that. Played with Walker Kessler, who's going to be somewhere, I think, in this first round. Chet Holmgren, tons of pressure, expectations. Gonzaga, number one for a lot of the season, and a lot that came with that. And then Paolo, playing for Coach K his last season. He was the go-to player. And they played in high-pressure situations, all took their teams to various levels within the course of the season. I think they're all three, in different ways, ready to contribute next season.
Well, I'll tell you what, the gambling world has taken note, and sure, there have been plenty of tweets put out over the last 24 hours. There's been assumptions made of what's going to happen until we hear Adam Silver call it out. The gambling world is still very much questioning it. These numbers that you're looking at, Jabari Smith right now is the betting favorite to go number one. But over the last 3 days, those numbers have jumped around so much so that Chet, at the beginning of the week, it was Jabari was the favorite, Paolo was the long shot, and you put Chet right in the middle. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the last couple of days, Brendan, those odds have shifted where Paolo went to the betting favorite, and now it's shifted back where he's number two. It's been do you think Orlando's playing games right now? Because they appear to have put it out there with many different reporters saying that the Magic are going to take Jabari Smith. Do you think Jeff Weltman and John Hammond know where they're going, or do you think that it could be somebody other than Jabari Smith?
I think they know where they're going. If you're a well-run organization, at this point, you need to know who you're taking number one. You've watched all the tape, you've watched them during the season, you've been to all these guys' practices, and then you've got them in your building. You got to see, okay, this guy a little bit bigger than I thought, who did great in the interview process. So once you get all that done, then you sit down with your higher-ups and you say, okay, this is the direction we're going to go. On draft night, you shouldn't be trying to think, who's going to be number one? You've had plenty of time to do that research. I think Orlando knows exactly who they're going to take.
Let me quickly, I want to bring in Andy on this real quick, because the whole thing that's popped up, and we hear this NFL draft, NBA draft week, there's always something that pops up. And this week it's been the lack of medical records from Chet Holmgren. For a guy, to my knowledge, that's got no history of injury issues, why all of a sudden in the last 2 days has this guy's lack of medical transparency become an issue?
Well, first of all, what happened this year in Chicago on the plus side for the NBA is this is the first time I can remember, I've been doing this a long time, where every player showed up for the combine. They didn't play. Now, the problem was not every player went through the medicals. Usually they show up, they don't do any playing, they'll go through the medicals, some interviews. Having the lottery show in Chicago helped get everyone there. The agents had a meeting there, so they wanted everyone in Chicago. I can't explain it. I will just say that these kinds of red flags pop up all the time when players don't go through medicals. Ultimately, though, more times than not, a player will be selected in his usual spot. I don't see Chet Holmgren, because he didn't go through all of that, not going as a floor number two to Oklahoma City.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think the thing with Chet was just the fact that we've never seen a body like that, right? And that naturally causes hesitation. And I think there are going to be doctors out there, and I've talked to a couple, who say that with that particular body, it's 7'2" and that thin, there are a record of heart problems, there's a record of just your limbs are just too long. And so there's obviously some cause of risk there. But again, I don't think it's going to affect his stock in this draft.
All right, we are counting down until that number one pick by Orlando is selected. I tell you, we've seen this quite a bit. Johnny Davis is looking good on the BR Kicks cam.
Fly, man.
Let's take a look at the National Player of the Year with Taylor Rooks.
All right, we're here with Johnny Davis. You got to walk us through the fit. You know, anybody that wears shades inside, they're really cool.
Yeah. Nah, that's on my stylist. You know, I got the watch on my wrist, some plain shoes. I had to make sure I wore red to represent the University of Wisconsin.
Absolutely. Now, you're styling on the court as well. I know defense is something you really prioritize. Why is that your calling card?
I just feel like, you can control your effort and intensity, especially on the defensive end. You can never control if the ball goes in the hoop. So I think defense is, a really big part of the game, and it helps win championships.
Okay, so for anybody out there that's wondering the kind of player that you are, give us a Johnny Davis scouting report.
Two-way, three-level scorer. I can lock up on the defensive end. On the offensive end, I can get a bucket basically anywhere on the floor at any time.
Now, you've talked about making an impact immediately, wherever you end up. Why do you feel like you can do that?
Just because I'm very unselfish. I'm a really good teammate. I pay attention to the details, too. Whatever coach needs me to do, whatever role I need to fill, I'm just going to do it to the best of my ability.
Now, lastly for you, when I was watching some film on you, back in 2020, you had a pretty legendary game. You dropped 42 points. Chet Holmgren was on the other side. Your team won. What do you think you proved in that matchup?
Actually, they won, but I thought I proved that I deserve to have my name up there with guys like him and Jalen Suggs. They were both on the team at the time, but they obviously had a really good team. I thought I played really well, but just couldn't come out with the W.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, good luck tonight and congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, great stuff, Taylor. We'll check back in with her in a moment. Here's the bio on Johnny Davis. Jonathan Wasserman on his latest mock draft, which, by the way, I think he has another one due out in the next 5 minutes, and then 5 more between now and 8 o'clock Eastern. He's got Johnny Davis going 10th in his mock draft. We'll see where Johnny winds up. As a guy who's able to get to the paint, can score, but he's a good enough shooter at the NBA level. We'll discuss that. We'll talk much more of the draft here in a moment, but let's get to the elephant in the room, okay? The last couple of days, there have been a lot of rumors swirling about the future of the Nets, and that starts right now with Kyrie Irving, who has until the 29th of this month to opt into his contract for next season. Now, there are many options. As we've heard and we've seen dozens of examples of this over the years, just because he opts out and does not opt in does not mean he's not a Net. They just they negotiate a new contract potentially for him. But the Nets appear to be standing firm that they don't want to give a guy who has not committed to playing a lot of basketball for them over the last 3 years to a long-term deal, certainly not a max type deal. Now, over the last hour, Adrian Wojnarowski of ESPN has reported that Kyrie Irving has listed several teams that he would be willing to go to in a potential sign and trade if they cannot work out a deal to keep him there. That list would include the Lakers, the Clippers, the Knicks, the Heat, the Mavs, and the 76ers. Now, I want to make this very, very clear.
Like a Christmas wish list.
It does sound like, but there needs to be more context to this, and I think what a lot of the media has not done is given that context to NBA fans. The reason why Kyrie Irving has to go about it this way is because they're outside of the Detroit Pistons, who are not on that wish list. There is not a team right now, especially on that wish list, that can afford Kyrie Irving. So unless Kyrie Irving wants to walk away from about $30 to $35 million a year and play on a $6 million a year contract for the LA Lakers, he needs the Nets' help to get to wherever he wants to go if they cannot work out a deal.
Yeah, in this type of situation, what Kyrie Irving and his camp are trying to do is they're trying to create leverage where there isn't any.
Correct.
They're trying to say, oh, send me here, send me there, and the Nets are just sitting there like, we don't really have to send you anywhere. And if you really want to leave, you can, but you're going to leave a lot of money on the table. Obviously, Kyrie's not going to want to do that. I'm not sure how this is going to play out. If I was advising Kyrie, I would tell him opt in. If you don't like the contract that the Nets are giving you, opt in, play well, help Brooklyn possibly win a championship next year. And then once you've rehabilitated your image, raised your stock, you get to go into the free agent market next year. Well, there will be some more teams with that type of money. But the biggest thing right now is Kyrie's going to have to rehabilitate his image, because right now a lot of those winning teams are going to be scared to touch him because of some of the rumors that have been leaked out about what was actually going on behind the scenes the last couple of seasons.
The Nets in 3 years with Kyrie and KD, granted KD missed a year because he's recovering from an Achilles tear. They've won one playoff series in those 3 years. But now, how does this affect KD? KD's already opted, he's already renegotiated a long-term deal that's got him there for the next several years. But as we've seen, player empowerment these days, the Nets are deathly afraid of something going sour with Kyrie and then KD walking into Joseph Tsai or Sean Marks' office and saying, I no longer want to play for you. So how do you think KD is looking at this?
Well, KD has to be looking at his future and the future of Kyrie Irving. And listen, if Kyrie doesn't sign or whatever happens, there has to be a plan in place where Nets management can walk to KD and say, okay, Kyrie might not be here, but this is how we're going to win. We're going to get this player, or we're going to trade him for this player or a draft pick or whatever it is. There has to be a plan in place because KD's not going to watch Kyrie walk out the door and then with the uncertainty around Ben Simmons just go into next year and think, oh, ho-hum, we have a chance to win a championship. And then you have to look, KD's in phenomenal shape, but we have to understand he's getting up there in age. I think he's around 34 years old now. These are years where it really matters to him about his legacy and winning championships. How does he move forward? And I think that he's going to have to look at this situation very carefully. And the Nets, whether they keep Kyrie or they don't, they have to have a plan in place that's going to be attractive to Kevin Durant.
Right. And if they do decide to deal Kyrie, whether it's to one of those teams or not, they need to bring back a package that keeps the Nets not competitive, but in the championship conversation for next season, because that's what KD came to Brooklyn to do. The fear is that Kyrie walks for nothing. But again, if Kyrie walks for nothing,
Kyrie can count.
He can count. But again, this is a guy who gave up $17 million last year because he didn't want to get vaccinated. So maybe money to this guy.
If you give up 17 one year, you don't want to turn around and give up 30 the next. I'm just saying.
Yeah. We will continue to monitor the Brooklyn situation throughout our pre-draft show live here on NBA TV. Paolo Banchero, look at that.
Oh, man, I'm about to wear that same suit today. I'm glad I didn't.
with the number 15, too?
Nah, just the style.
Chet Holmgren. Is he the next Sean Bradley or is he the next Kevin Durant?
Can we say neither and be happy with that?
Absolutely. You can be,
I'm gonna go
happy
neither.
doing that. We're allowed to.
I'm going to go a great year with a great group of guys. We put everything we had into it. Unfortunately, we didn't make Final Four, didn't win a national championship. But, I wouldn't go back and change a thing or, make a different decision on anything. Overall, it was great. I loved my experience there. A lot of lessons that I learned from it. And like you said, we were the number one team for the majority of the season. And, I feel like we lived up to that. Countless lessons on the court, about basketball, just playing at that level. Different things I learned from coach, from different players on my team that, have been through it, seen it. And then lessons just from experience. I came in, never played a college basketball game, didn't have that experience under my belt. And, after playing, 36 of them, there were a lot of lessons, that I learned from, playing 40 minutes 36 times. I'd say I hate losing more than I love winning. So defense is, no matter what you do on offense, you're going to spend half the game on defense. So you got to take pride in it. And you got to, really hold your own on that end of the court because there's no point in scoring 30 if you give up 35 points. So, I've always taken pride in my defense, and, I know that defense is winning plays, and a lot of times defense, like you said, it feeds my offense. So, I take it serious, and, I try to go out every game and, make an impact on that end of the floor.
How imposing are you on the defensive side?
You're going to have to ask the guys that I play against, but a lot of people I talk to or don't talk to, I see a lot of people, don't even try to lay the ball up on me. So take with that what you will. I don't think that there's anybody that can do what I do and do all the things that I do at the level I do it.
And what is it that you do that no one can do?
Everything. Whatever's asked of me to win basketball games, and at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to, winning. I've been a winner my whole life. Everything I've done is to try and be a better winner in the game of basketball. And, unfortunately, like you said, we weren't able to come out with the national championship this year, but, I think I have a great winning record, and my game speaks for that. I wouldn't compare myself to, a single player. I'm trying to be the first me. I'm trying to be myself and kind of blaze a path for myself. But, as a basketball junkie, I definitely take a lot of things from different players. I love to watch KD. I love to watch Giannis, even retired guys like Dirk. I've been watching a lot of playoffs, watching Luka, different guys that, have size as well as skill. And, they kind of use that combination to get whatever they want out of the game. And, those are the guys that I watch. I watch, a lot more. And, whatever I see in somebody's game that I feel like I can add to mine and, help myself out with it. I try to do that. So it's, it's like a hash of players, but, I wouldn't say it's just one person.
So Chet Holmgren, taking a look at his bio there, and more than anything, he is a bit of a unicorn because we have not seen a player like Chet Holmgren since I can remember. He's essentially a guard, the way he can handle the basketball, take it off the rim, go in a couple of dribbles and finish, yet in a big man's body. Productivity-wise, what have you seen, Jonathan?
He's the only player in college basketball to ever block 100 shots, make 43s, and get 60 assists. When you talk about unicorn, that's pretty accurate. So between his finishing, his open floor ball handling, his passing IQ, his defensive upside, he checks so many boxes. So, the upside there is crazy. It's just inside the arc, strength-wise, is he going to have trouble with physicality? That's the big question on everyone's minds. But I don't think it's alarming enough for a team like the Oklahoma City Thunder to pass at number 2.
And that's the key thing. We talk about strength. He is stronger than I think he looks. And he is very defensive about that when I asked him about his strength. Gets it much more from his base, his lower body. I will say this. In the Memphis game, a game they ended up coming back and winning in the NCAA tournament, he did get pushed around a little bit by Jalen Duren and those Memphis bigs. But there's a confidence about him, somewhat a bit of a cockiness about him, that he thinks he is certainly strong in the post and will definitely come right back at you. So I am curious, Mr. Greenberg, if Mr. Haywood, how he would judge an opposing big's strength in the post.
He said he was stronger than he looks. I don't know about that one, Andy. I just think that he's very skilled. And so when we say that he's a unicorn, we haven't seen anything like him. I think we have seen somebody kind of similar. That's the guy that we originally called the unicorn. Porzingis, the unicorn in human form. That's what they were calling him, the unicorn, because there's a lot of similarities. They both have skills. They both can put the ball on the floor. They both can shoot the three and protect the rim. And that's what Chet brings you, a guy that's over 2 blocks per game but shot 39% from three. That's what makes him versatile. The same thing for Porzingis. Let's not forget, Porzingis was an all-star in New York. He averaged 23 points per game in New York. So these are all things that I think that Chet really comps well with Porzingis. And the biggest thing is going to be, can he put on enough weight to punish switches in the league? What they're going to do in the pick and roll is they're going to switch pick and rolls with smaller players, and they're going to say, let's see what you can do when we have a smaller guy get up into you, take away your drives. Can you punish that guy in the mid-post and on the low block? And that's where the weight room is going to come into play.
You and Chet are essentially the same height.
He's taller than me.
You think he's taller than you?
Yeah, I'm 6'11". Chet's like 6'7", 3".
Well, you played at about 80 pounds heavier than he is?
Yeah, for sure,
right?
Easily, yeah.
That's crazy. All this talk about who can he guard in this positionless world we play in, the question for me is not that, it's who can guard him?
Well, I think but that's the thing, a lot of guys can guard him. So I played with Dirk, and I'll say that Chet and Dirk, there are some similarities there. And what made Dirk really special on that 2011 championship run is he became a lot better from the low block and the mid-post, and you could no longer beat him up with smaller players. When that Golden State team, the Redeem team, whatever they were called, when they beat him, they were switching smaller guys like Matt Barnes, Steven Jackson on to Dirk. Right. And all those guys did was they took away his drive, and Dirk didn't post up enough at that time. In 2011, you can no longer do that. And that's what's going to be the challenge for Chet. With NBA teams will catch up to you, and they'll say, okay, we're going to put smaller guys on you because you're not punishing us on the block. And you're not going to be able to drive around a Jimmy Butler if they switch him on you. You're going to have to go to your secondary move, and that's where he's going to need to develop the strength and that consistent mid-range game where he can just take 1 to 2 bounces and pull up over smaller players.
Right, and he was shooting 39% from three last year. Obviously, his airspace will be much more infringed upon than it was at his 1 year at Gonzaga. The other guy who's in contention for that number 2 spot, heck, maybe even the number 1 spot, Brendan thinks he should be, is Paolo Banchero. He is a guy that comes out of Duke. He is a guy that has tremendous upside, and he's on the red carpet with Taylor Rooks.
Here with Paolo Banchero now. A lot of attention on you tonight for your talent, but also for this suit. What message do you want to send with this outfit?
I just wanted to make a little bit of a statement, but this is really a shout out to my parents. I didn't go to Washington, but they did. And when I didn't go there, they caught a little bit of heat for it. So, just a respect, out of respect for them, and a little, apology gift.
They still haven't gotten over it.
Well, no, they got over it, but some of their alumni and fellow, college mates didn't. But it's all right.
No, it's all good. So I heard you tell GQ that you are the swaggiest player in the draft. What makes you the swaggiest player?
Just that I'm comfortable, with my own skin, my own style. I kind of put this together, picked it out and said what color I wanted and everything. So that's just, my humble opinion.
Yeah. Okay, what's more nerve-wracking, the draft tonight or Duke UNC game?
I would say a Duke UNC game.
Why?
Well, this year it was probably the two biggest ones, but I just think, the rivalry and the history behind it, you really want to come out and win those games.
So when you look around a lot of guys in the draft, I know you've talked about being the best player here. What do you feel like separates you?
Just my overall versatility and then my will to win, I feel like I've been a winner my whole career, and it translates, wherever I go. So, that's a big part. And also being a great teammate, guys like playing with me, and I'm able to make guys better. So I think that's what separates me.
Absolutely. And lastly, you're pretty much a lock for one of the top 3 picks. What does it mean to be considered as, the cream of the crop of this draft class?
It's an honor. There's a bunch of great players in this draft, and to be, like you said, considered at the top is just a testament to, the work, I've put in and how hard I've worked to get here. And yeah, it's also a credit to the other guys too.
Keep shining, literally and figuratively. Good luck and congratulations. Thanks, Paolo.
And thank you, Taylor. We'll check back in with you in a moment. Here's the BR Kicks Cam on site at Barclays.
Okay.
No socks. I prefer the socks.
Yeah, I like socks too. I like your socks, but I like that fit though right there. That's fly. That's fly. No socks or no socks, that's fly.
Here's what's going on. It is a busy night on social media. Hit us up. Let us know what you're seeing out there, what you want your teams to do. Sure, we got a hashtag out there somewhere, NBA Draft. Brendan Haywood, Jonathan Wasserman, Andy Katz's Deli